Hi, I'm Leah Brown, and I am going to talk about my final decisions based upon the risk information calculated and researched during this semester, looking at the complex system of a biosafety level 4 laboratory. Essentially, I tried to summarize not only all of the technical results, which are available compiled in Project Part 17, but I tried to state their relevance and how I would proceed knowing that technical data. The first analysis that I really looked at for this was the FMEA, and this preliminary step showed that the largest threat to the sterile envelope was due to a torn air filter or a ripped biosafety suit. The ways that I indicated it would be best to deal with either of these errors would be pressure sensors in the HVAC system that would be able to discern whether the air filter was ripped or not by a sudden increase in airflow. And here is where I started to run into the problem of the security of my system. Most of these institutions are government or military owned and run. And the fact is you can't find a schematic of the HVAC system online. You can find pictures of what they're supposed to be. You can find recommendations, but you can't find a list of sensors used. The fact is that these systems probably actually have these sensors already in place because the risks and stakes are so high in dealing with these kind of microbes. Looking at the ripped biosafety suit, the biggest thing that can really improve that situation is well-trained personnel, which is something that these laboratories have a surplus of. The fact is that if you put a random civilian into one of these suits, it would cause a huge issue in the sterile envelope of the hot zone, but everybody going into these biosafety suits knows what they're doing, and that is why we see such a low rate of incidence. The PRA analysis that I did delivered the most comprehensive results that I managed to calculate that dealt with the entire complex system of the lab. And all of these results came back very positive. Every event tree analyzed, except for the tree considering a total electrical blackout of the entire grid, passed the simulation in the Sapphire software at a level above 98%. And the case of a total electrical blackout depends on a massive complex system which has its entire own PRA analysis somewhere, which proves just how bulletproof it is. And considering that this system would have to black out for weeks for it to affect my complex system, it's not really anything that I'm worried about. The only modification that would really help this is to extend emergency generator capacity and on-site fuel storage, but this might be impractical given that these facilities are probably already optimized for space. Again, it's data that's very hard to find given the secure nature of these facilities. Another way that the facility could be managed in the case of an entire loss of power would be storage freezers that completely lock and shut down in the case of loss of power. These freezer systems are where the dangerous microbes are stored, and if in the case of power loss they just shut down with some sort of airtight system, then it would prevent any sort of escape. However, again, this might exist. It's not something that I could find, but it might be there already. Looking at the system robusticity analysis, this actually gave quite a few easy fixes that could help the system be better. The breach in the suit, again, it can be fixed and aided by very well-trained personnel. It can also be made stronger. However, a thicker suit reduces mobility. This is something that has been optimized already. Blunted instruments in laboratories are also suggested, and these are often used in necropsies on laboratory animals. And the rounded corners on counters would also help prevent a serendipitous tear in the suit, but there aren't, I don't know. They might have rounded counters. The issue of an air hose disconnecting from the suit could be fixed with a sturdier locking mechanism or a more flexible hose that could stretch further. And if either of these issues ever cropped up in a lab, they would be addressed. The fact that there aren't standards on them means that they probably haven't caused any sort of massive sterilization issue so far. The fact that the suits are kept under positive pressure gives scientists a moment to deal with getting their air hose reconnected. And again, these are very well-trained personnel who've shown little proclivity for incidents. And given the research that takes place in these laboratories, the fact is that the cleaning of the facilities is probably taken very, very seriously, and it's probably very heavily regulated. And issues stemming from cleanliness isn't likely. An extra measure of security could be implemented by keypads going into and out of the showers, but again, the question of security of the lab becomes a larger question of security of the building in which the lab is located. The case of a keypad failure is going to be the biggest thing that I could come up with a modification for this system. The fact is that the largest danger to a biosafety level 4 laboratory is a security breach from somebody who wants to use or distribute the viruses inside for nefarious reasons. The viruses aren't trying to escape, but people might be trying to get in, and this means that that is what can most actively be blocked against. And this isn't something that can be done with excessive machinery or more advanced laboratory techniques. This is something that has to do with the security of the building. It has to do with background checks and what personnel are allowed to get into the lab. And this is where I would advise putting the most money and effort into improving this complex system, because as I've seen through multiple methods of analysis of multiple subsystems within this greater complex system, it's essentially bulletproof. The only thing that could really take it out would be a near apocalyptic loss of power for weeks on end. And if that's happening, then there are probably bigger things to worry about. So I think that the biggest modification to these systems could be made in increased security. And given that they are mostly government and military institutions working on very highly secured projects, cost isn't really an issue. All of these systems have top-of-the-line everything. They're functioning how they're supposed to. And the focus from this point on should be keeping people who shouldn't be in there out. And again, already this system's doing an excellent job of it because we don't see incidents, we don't see failures in security. So I trust the experts on this one. I think that they're doing a good job with mitigating the risk in this extremely risky research facility. Thank you for your time.